Hey there, friends. I just wanted to make a quick reminder video about what I posted yesterday in case you missed it. So the Unidentified Alien podcast just interviewed Mark Christopher Lee. He is a journalist and filmmaker in the UK. He actually made at least one film that I'm aware of. He mentioned it on this podcast, God vs. Aliens. It's on Tubi for free. I just started watching it or listening to it for a little bit. I'll have to keep on listening to it, but I think he did say in this podcast he's a Christian, although he said something later on that gave me some doubt about that. But anyway, that's kind of irrelevant, at least to the point where that he's making, somebody reached out to him, a friend of his that he had grown an acquaintance with actually since making that particular film in 2023 is when it was released. Someone in the White House told him that Donald Trump has already written and is planning on a disclosure speech July 8th. And also, in addition to that, he mentioned in this interview, May 1st, that source is going to come forward, and it sounds like it's going to be somebody that we know, he said, and give a presentation, like a news conference of sorts, on May 1st to ensure, partly to ensure that the July 8th thing is happening and to put pressure on him to make sure that it happens and all that. So, yeah, it was a really good interview, but there's a lot of things at the end of it that made me think. The afterthoughts from Stephen Diener, he's the host of the show. You want to check that out. I'm not going to belabor the point. Just check it out. I'm not going to get sidetracked talking about that because I want to talk about something else. But one thing, though, that makes it why it's important to talk about this as Christians is that he who discloses gets to control the narrative. And do you really trust the government? I don't care if it's Trump or anybody else. You know, why are they choosing to disclose? What do they get out of it? It's got to be something, right? Just a lot of questions around that I think are very important. And as I have always said, I think major deception could be right around the corner. However it plays out exactly, I don't know if this is a spiritual thing. I personally, and I don't know if it is a spiritual thing or 100% spiritual, some of it's spiritual, whatever, but for whatever part of it that is spiritual, I think the play is that, well, devils want to be worshipped, right? You know, the gods of the Old Testament, the gods of old, they want worship. The devil wants worship, right? So, yeah, that's just, hang that idea in the back, and we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, so I've always had my doubt about this happening. When I first heard of the July 8th disclosure thing, I'm like, okay, 99% chance that's not happening. And I had never heard of this filmmaker or the news around it, his story or anything like that. But after listening to this interview, I'm starting to, I dropped that 99% down to maybe 90%. So still really highly doubt it. And I'm not saying that he isn't to be trusted. I believe that he was told this information from whatever his source is. But I want to play devil's advocate here, and let's give some reasons as to why this could be true. Not that I believe it necessarily is. There is a big part of me that's hoping. I mean, this channel is named UAP, or Christians for UAP Transparency, or Christians for UAP Disclosure, depending on if I changed my name yet or not, because I think I'm going to do that pretty quick to that. But anyway, let me just share something that's kind of cool, though. So he posted about it on his Twitter or X feed. I'm not sure you call it Twitter or X now, but just kind of clarify or mentioning too that he has this interview with Stephen Diener. He posted for clarification on what is happening, Trump's UFO disclosure speech, watch this podcast, and then that's Stephen Diener's post there. But then I said, we're asking about clarification. I'm like, any chance you can clarify what you meant about putting pressure on Trump with the May 1st conference? Because he mentioned about putting pressure on him. And I'm like, well, if it's a done deal, why would you have to put pressure on him? And I think Stephen Diener did kind of clarify that a little bit, but I just wanted extra clarification. And I had already reached out to Stephen Diener, and he responded to that a separate time. And then again, also in this kind of thread too. But anyway, he said, yes, spot on. So there's no backing out. And then I'm like, oh, thanks for clarifying. Looking forward to it. Also, I'm checking out your film, God vs. Aliens, on Tubi, not Tubi. Glad you mentioned it. Working my way through the film now. And he's like, oh, thank you. One of my first ones, appreciate that. So that's pretty cool that he actually responded to that. But yeah, I just want to go over a few reasons why this could be true. And I posted it on my Facebook. All right, I had to find it again. But here is just a few notes that I took when I posted, one of the times I posted about it the other day. And as always, I have to complain about it, but I talk about this. You would think that this would be one of the top things that Christians want to talk about, for protecting ourselves, first of all. Biblical clarification, so we don't go astray, or other members of the church don't go astray, for those who may not be as grounded in the faith. And then also protecting the world from deception and all that stuff. You think that would be important to talk about, but nobody cares, at least not in my friend circles or whatever. Anyway, for my notes only. So this is just, thinking that, well, maybe it could be true because of this. And there's a few things I probably left out, but this is just my quick thoughts. So the bank, I think, is like a Swiss bank or Bank of England. I can't remember what it's called, but if you remember the news, just not too long ago, they were talking about this. They were preparing for UAP disclosure. David Grush's words, he gave an interview not too long ago that, seemed kind of like he was kind of hinting at something. Like, oh, I don't want to, get ahead of what the president wants to do, etc. He said some other things. It just seemed kind of interesting, like that there was something in the works. Dan Farah's film, of course, Age of Disclosure, could have moved the ball down the field a little bit. Got a lot of people in Congress and the Senate to watch it, and just raised interest for a lot of people. And of course, you have 34 governmental people talking about the subject in the affirmative. So, yeah, you have that. Laura Trump. Now, this one, I don't know if I want to put that as a point that could lead one to think that we would be getting it, because she did confirm, or she said that she at least heard that, she doesn't, I think Trump's got some big speech coming about this or something like that. So she could have just heard it from the same source that we're all hearing it from. It may not be that she heard it from an inside source. So I'm a little iffy on that one, but yeah, just take that for what it's worth. Age of Disclosure, I already mentioned that. Dan Farah, too, he mentioned some stuff on his, or Joe Rogan's podcast that kind of led me to believe that, this is making waves in Washington, basically. And that Donald Trump has heard of it, stuff like that, of the film. It doesn't mean he watched it, but he knows about it. Let's see, you have the January 20th Brazil testimony press conference in Washington, D.C. That was very important, and again, I mentioned it, and nobody seems to even care about it. But yeah, that whole thing, like, I just learned about that whole situation in Brazil, Varginha, Brazil. Never knew about it, I don't think, before, until just very recently. I started hearing James Fox talk about it on various podcasts, and the more I hear about it, the more intrigued I am, and something went down. But yeah, that happened in Washington, D.C. You had members of Congress there and other people. It was a pretty big deal, and they're still making movement on that case. Let's see, Eric Burlison getting the authority of the White House to investigate with the blessing of the Department of Defense. Shouldn't it be called DOW now, not DOD, Department of War? Because isn't that what it's called now? But anyway, yeah, so I guess apparently he got the blessing from the White House, from Trump himself, apparently, to investigate, to go to these places. And that seems to be making some headway there. So that's really interesting. I think this is all preparation for something, even if there is no disclosure, actually. No disclosure speech from Trump. This is still all leading up to something, whatever it is. And again, I think there's going to be a component of deception. Disclosure Day. Steven Spielberg. That movie's coming up. Steven Spielberg is the GOAT of filmmaking. And yeah, like, we got another trailer at the Super Bowl. It's interesting that it was the first trailer of the Super Bowl. So I don't know how much interest there is in the movie or what he's going to say in the movie or do, but he is pretty tuned in to the topic. So yeah, it's just coincidence. It happens to come out about a month before this supposed actual disclosure day. So we'll see. And more whistleblowers coming forward, especially one that Rep. Eric Burlison has been talking about for a little while now. I think he says that it's going to be the biggest whistleblower yet if everything goes through. Even bigger than David Grush, I think he said at one point on a podcast. There's also, I don't have it listed here, I don't think, but Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, kind of important person. She only heads all 18 intelligence agencies. She said last year in an interview in the summer that, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but pretty close. But she said that she's not ready to have that discussion, yet with the American people. Or not ready to have that discussion with the American people, yet. It's very ominous, very like she's onto something there. Like she wants to say more, but she's not ready to have that discussion yet. Like they're planning something. Talking about UAP. So I found that very fascinating. So let's see, was there a few other I'm sure there's more things, but I'm talking about like the biggest things that I can think of that would lend itself to believing that the July 8th thing could be true. I still have my doubt. I mean, maybe it's less than 90%. I don't know. Maybe I just want something to happen. I'm getting myself too excited, and I shouldn't. I remember what happened with Skywatcher last year. I can make a whole video about that. That's one of I was going to make a top 5 most disappointing things of 2025 video right at the new year. I didn't, but if I did, that was going to be one of the things, the whole Skywatcher thing. I mean, man, that, and then Donald Trump and the drone situation, which kind of, makes me doubt the whole July 8th thing a little bit more. That'd probably be number 2, the Donald Trump thing. Maybe it's a close tie between that and Skywatcher. But number 1 is that Christians still are not taking this seriously. Can't remember what 4 or 5 would have been. I have to think about it for a little bit. But I did have it all planned out. I was going to do it. Anyway, I got to get going. I have a father-daughter dancing to attend to pretty quick. But yeah, anyway, God bless you guys. Tell me what you think about this. And if there's any other things you want to add to it, let me know down below.